All right, let's jump into the program for this evening. This week, the House Oversight and Accountability Committee conducted a hearing with two IRS whistleblowers concerning the ongoing Biden family criminal investigation. The hearing included testimony under oath detailing not only the millions of dollars paid for by foreign actors to the Biden family, but also the lengths that the Department of Justice went to divert and delay the IRS criminal investigations and the investigators who were tasked with pursuing justice. Well, joining me now to discuss this and more is Congressman Glenn Grothman. He serves on three committees, including the Oversight Committee. He represents the 6th Congressional District of Wisconsin. He and I actually are classmates going into Congress at the same time. Congressman Grothman, welcome back to Washington Watch. Always good to see you.
Glad to see you, Congressman.
Well, thank you so much. All right. Well, listen, thanks for joining us. And I want to circle back to the hearing that you had this week. By the way, you did a great job, as did some of your other colleagues. I'd like to start by playing a clip and then get your reaction to this. Play clip 5, please.
What these records reveal is astonishing. The Bidens created over 20 shell companies, most of which were created when Joe Biden was vice president. Bank records so far show the Biden family, their business associates, and their companies received over $10 million from foreign nationals and related companies.
This is unbelievable. You have a few days now under the bridge, water under the bridge. You've been able to distance somewhat from the hearing and let some of it sink in. Now, going back to it, what are some of the things from that hearing that jumped out to you that the whistleblower's testimony provided?
Well, your listeners have to know we're talking about really two interrelated but separate scandals going on. And the hearing focused on the scandal of the Department of Justice, the degree to which they tried to thwart the IRS from finding out the degree to which Hunter Biden broke the law. And we have two whistleblowers coming forward, risking their careers, saying they've never seen anything like this in their long careers. There were supposed to be days of action after President Biden was declared the winner, but before he was sworn in which we expected to interview 12 people. Only one was made available. The IRS had tipped off, apparently, the Biden transition team as to what was going to happen here. And as the result, they also got involved, and the establishment people here had recommended felonies. Justice weighed in and said, no, we're just going to give Hunter Biden a slap on the wrist. All the way across the board, we had a Justice Department that was operating even while President Trump was president. It was so ingrained. They were operating to look out for the Biden family and make sure they didn't get in too much trouble. Now, we had other scandal come out today. I had seen this, what they call a Form 1023, showing that statements were made that Joe and Hunter Biden were both to receive $5 million, apparently to remove a prosecutor from the Ukraine and open things up for a Ukrainian company. So we have there just what appears to be, we're going to see if there's another side of the story, but what appears to be flat out bribery and Joe Biden weighing in as vice president. And secondly, a Justice Department that is apparently so filled with liberals. My guess is they get that way by going to college in the United States, just left-wingers who, rather than help the IRS convict or research or investigate the Biden.
Well, both of those points. Yeah, both of those points are incredibly disturbing. I mean, you had one of the whistleblowers, Joseph Ziegler, I believe it was, actually said that he felt handcuffed throughout the investigation. And so you have, as you describe, the Department of Justice literally pushing on the scales of how this is going to turn out and protecting Biden and Hunter. And at the same time, the potential bribery that is taking place in your face. Tell me, Congressman, how should everyday working Americans respond when they see what is seemingly a pattern, a clear pattern of preferential treatment?
Well, we should be worried about two things. First of all, we should worry about the Department of Justice. And it's the bureaucrats in the Department of Justice. Remember, a lot of this took place when President Trump was even the president. But the bureaucracy was so set on looking out for the Biden family, they did it anyway. They thwarted this investigation. It was much lower than it should have been. And at the end, when they wound up striking a deal with Hunter Biden, it was for far less than it should be. The other thing that's of concern, the President of the United States may be somebody who over in Ukraine was just pay to play. And like he had the morals of a 1920s Chicago alderman.
Wow. So where's this going to go from here? All right, you've had an incredible hearing, a ton of information coming forward. I know Chairman Comer said there's more to come, including possible criminal referrals. Is that correct? So where's this moving from here?
And we've got many more bank records to go. You know, there were people who bragged who said they were doing such a good job of transferring these monies through, I think it was either 20 or 21 shell companies that we never catch them. But we are going to get more bank records, and hopefully, I don't want to say hopefully, but perhaps we will find that we have literal evidence of money going from Ukraine to the Bidens. You've got to remember, we already know that 9 different Biden family members were getting money off their connections to Joe. So,
yeah,
we'll have to see where we go.
Yeah, and you know, I remember, I'm sure you do as well, that clip we started with here, the president bragging about how he went in and said, you're not getting your $1 billion unless you do. And now you start connecting the dots, and all these little clips begin to make sense. Let me play another clip for you, and again, get your reaction to this. Clip 7, please.
These 2 courageous whistleblowers provided my committee with devastating testimony showing that the government is not treating all taxpayers equally, and the DOJ and the IRS gave preferential treatment to the president's son during a criminal investigation into his taxes.
That was, of course, Chairman Jason Smith. Your reaction to that, Congressman?
Well, of course, with preferential treatment comes the idea that there was a very good chance he will be guilty of bribery of some sort. Of course, other people must know this, which means it's possible that our president can be influenced by people in the Ukraine, wherever, to direct American foreign policy the way they want. Obviously, President Biden and his son are the only people who know what's going on here. And insofar as people connected with foreign governments know what's going on, they could put pressure on President Biden and it can affect the decisions he's making as president, which is really scary. I can't remember a time in our country in which we are a more precarious situation, not only in Ukraine, precarious situation with China. And people know out there know more than the American people do as far as to what degree is President Biden compromised. As a legislator, I've got to make decisions whether we can do with Ukraine to a degree, trade with China, that sort of thing. And can we trust President Biden to be looking out for the country as a whole, or as it becomes increasingly clear, is he looking out to make sure he and his son don't wind up going to prison?
Well, the big question, and I'll just let you answer this in 10 seconds, literally is about all we have. But are we going to be able to achieve a system of justice that is not a 2-tiered system like we are currently watching? About 10 seconds.
We almost need a revolution in this country in which we get back to the moral values that this country was built. The scariest thing here is the Department of Justice was so politically left-wing, they felt it was their goal to protect the Biden.